So as you may have read from the title, you're probably thinking, how can one person make the predecessor to one of the greatest Sonic games of all time? Well, come with me on this long ride while I explain exactly what this game is going to become. So as a little backstory, Sonic Heroes was a game that I grew up playing a lot as a kid. It was one of those formats completely unique that no other game has ever bothered to try to make again. And I'm sure lots of you also have thousands upon thousands of hours of playing this beautiful game as well. So without any more delay, let's begin. So my engine of choice for this project is the Unreal Engine, specifically Unreal Engine 5.4. I started using Unreal like 5 or 6 years ago because a friend recommended it to me, and honestly, it's just the engine that I stuck with, so I run with it through its faults. So since this is a Sonic Heroes inspired game, the first thing that I needed to do was to actually get the 3 characters and the AI functioning to follow in formations when you switch to different class types. So instead of doing speed, power, and flight, I'm going to do speed, damage, and tank. Now wait, before I lose you, let me explain to you why I'm going to make this change. This project isn't just a 3D platformer, it is more of an action platformer that will have an actual combat system inside of it. I'll go more into detail on the combat system later, but let's talk more about what the characters will do. To start the character system, I had to create a parent class of the character base. This class will hold all the information for the playable characters in the game, which in turn will make it easier for me to make multiple different variable type characters. So basically think about any game you've played with lots of characters in it, like fighting games or anything of that matter. Making my characters this way will give me full control of how I want each and every character to play. Each type of character class will have their own type of passive associated with them. Tanks will have more health overall and a higher jump. Speed characters will have the fastest base speed and 2 small jumps. Damage characters are the slowest overall, but have 3 attacks in the air and have the highest damage in the game. But before we continue, here's me. Not going home. The natural gameplay loop will be just like Sonic Heroes with all the banter and running through the levels, but with a twist. The combat's going to be a mixture of like Super Smash Bros. And Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games. So the third gameplay loop is going to be catching these small creatures called summons. They are little food mixed animals that will give you stats and abilities in combat and while platforming. We will go over the summon system at a later time in this video, but for now we need to talk about the character select system and how you will choose characters throughout the game. So in this character select screen, you'll be able to choose the characters that you want for your team, and you can mix and match them as you please. This also means if you wanted to run 1 character, 2 characters, or 3 characters, you can. You have that choice entirely. So upon making this system, I realized that I needed stats for the characters and to be able to level them up. Luckily, the level up system was really easy to implement since we're just messing with numbers and putting that onto the character class itself. Levels on a character will unlock different abilities that they can use in combat, which should give a sense of progression for each character in the game. You will be prompted to kind of play each and every one and kind of like mix and match your style to as you choose. For creating the whole stat system, I needed a way to display the stats on the character select screen. So I was pretty stumped for a while on how to actually display it, so I decided to use a reference from Wuthering Waves, which they display stat information very well. Specifically, what I took from them is how the characters are on the right side of the screen. You can click it and it just changes to that character's stats. So I created a mock-up of my own to show where the stats would be the character's select space as well, the summons and the equipment that you'll be able to equip to the character, and the 3D model that will be displayed on the UI when you select said character. This also holds true for the summon list as well. I have the summons displayed on the left side to show you all your list of summons, the stats that it has on the right side, and the model that will be displayed in the middle. This specific one that you're looking at right now is the Rock Candy Rabbit. This is a general idea of how the summons will look. And then I can use that same method for the equipment list and keep it pretty much exactly the same. So the equipment are going to be for combat, and they have like special properties and effects and stats that they'll give you in battle. And so I began truly working on the character select screen, and after a solid like month and a half of slaving away at this screen, I eventually got it all working. I got the equipment working on the character select screen, so you can equip up to 4 per character, and they each have a unique effect that's not coded into the game just yet, but they are written into the game. Each summon has their abilities all coded into the game. Right now we only have 2 summons that you can choose from, but each summon has 2 abilities with different percentages on how to get those abilities. So the system is all working, very few bugs, and I'm really proud of how this screen turned out, because I really do hate working with UI. It is not fun. So after you're done applying all your stats and characters, you can see all the summons and equipment that's gonna be on there for the characters on this little placeholder screen. And then you can click start and it loads you into the level with all their class, stats, abilities, everything into the game. So now summons were mentioned a lot throughout this video so far, so let's actually take some time to talk about them a little bit. And let's talk about how you're going to catch them, because that's going to be a fun little mini game. So first thing I did was set up a base class for the summons that they all were inherit from, just the same that I did with the characters as well. When they spawn in and or I place them in world, I can choose which summon that they're going to be. Once you go and catch the summon though, they will roll a dice on all of their stats that you can choose to keep them or get rid of them, and it rolls the dice on the ability as well. So the only way that I thought of to make this fun is essentially to just put Ape Escape in the game. You'll run around trying to catch the summons and you'll roll stats on them, and whether you like it or not, you can choose to keep them or set them free, and then they get put into your equipment. So now with the character select screen done, summons being done, we do need to start looking at making a 3D model. So by this point, you probably noticed some of the character icons on the HUD. The first one that we're going to tackle is Strawberry. Strawberry is one of the characters that I've always had in my mind for a very long time and have been working on her design over several years. She is one of the main characters that you'll be able to play as throughout the game. Her power is that she has creation magic. Busted, I know, but there is a downside to it. In order for her to use her power, she has to picture the image in her head. But she has a case called aphantasia. Having a high case of aphantasia makes it so that she can't picture images in her head all that well. All images in her head are really hazy, except for the image of her father's shield. Now with her backstory out of the way, let's go on to the 3D process. This image that I'm showing you is the first blockout I did of her model, just getting the main pieces of her body shape into the mesh. So unfortunately I don't have too many images of the early process, but I have the finished product of her model before putting on some final tweaks. This was me getting all her initial colors and texture work done. I did make a couple more minor tweaks specifically to the face area and added a mask later on. So with the texture work done, here is the turnaround of the model. I am really happy with the way that this model turned out, and now it is time for me to start going into rigging. So for all my previous rigs that I've ever made, I've always used a program called Auto Rig Pro, which essentially just rigs the thing for you. But this time I wanted to make the model from scratch, because with Auto Rig Pro it's very hard to duplicate the model because there's a lot of scripting tied to all the rigging. And one of the perks from making the rig from scratch is that you can just duplicate the model and use a base rig for all your characters. And with a base rig, that means you can have base animations, which means enemies can be grabbed and all use the same grab animation. The Soul Calibur games actually use this method as well. For rigging her hair, I decided to do something absolutely insane. I made each one of her strands of hair actual bones in the hair so that it all flows when it's moving around. Now this process is highly not recommended, but the outcome of it will look really nice once it's all done. So I quickly made her running animation to test to see how the hair flows with her movement. It looked good, but there is still a lot of clipping through the body, and we need to be able to control how much influence the damp track has on her hair. So even though the rig isn't completely finished, I was really excited to put her in the engine to see how she would look. So after coating her materials and making the global shaders, this is the outcome, and I absolutely love the way that she turned out and hope that I can make all my characters of this quality. So back to the hair issue. Without control, you can see that the hair just clips through her body and just kind of is wild everywhere. So to remedy this, in Blender I made a little system that controls the influence of each and every bone in her hair. Not gonna lie, this process was really tough to slog through. It took an insanely long time to actually get this working. But even throughout all the work I had to do to get this working, I really feel that it was worth it in the end. And after all that was set and done, you can see that the hair has a lot more control and flows a lot better. Now the hair was probably the longest rigging process I've had to do for this project so far. And with that done, we can go on to try and export the model into Unreal and see how the hair moves in engine. The next problem I ran into is when I got the model into the engine and played the animations, the hair had issues with looping. So I found that if I bake the entire hair animation bones into the animation itself, it fixes the problem and loops perfectly. So now we have the base systems done. We have the character select screen, we have the equipment shop, we have experience, we have the 3 characters that can swap between them when doing the platforming, we have abilities for the characters, both in platforming and in combat. So now it's time we talk about the combat, because this is the part that's going to be really complex and take a while to go over. So as I said earlier, the combat is going to be a mixture of Super Smash Bros. With Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, but let me go over exactly what I'm taking from both. When it comes to the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm aspect, I'm taking how the combos work and the arena fighter aspect. In that game, you do combos by mashing the normal attack buttons, but you're holding different directions to influence which type of attack you're going to do. For example, this is just mashing the button without holding any directions, while this is the combo of mashing the button while holding down. I figure this will be a nice and easy way for people to learn the combos, and will be able to style and add flair into their combos later on when they level up the character even more. So now let's talk about the influence that I'm getting from Super Smash Bros. And or platform fighters in general. The biggest aspect I'm going to be taking from platform fighters is the wave dashing. What wave dashing will allow you to do is microspace your attacks and have a strong, grounded, neutral game. Along with wave dashing, I will also be taking the directional aerial attacks as well. So now that I have an idea of what I want the combat to look like, it's time to actually start coding the combat. And so I began with making a base enemy class that all the enemies will inherit from, creating a health bar, and calculating damage based off of the character stats that's on the character plus all the modifications of character stats that you can get throughout the game. One of the first systems I created was the damage scaling system. So basically all this system does is just lowers the amount of damage that's being done on successive hits of the same type of attack. So I realized that having the character always face the enemy would cause some problems, so I changed it so that it's the camera that's only facing the enemy now and the character is free to move around as they want. And then I also added the ability to crit based off your character's crit rate stat. So instead of just calling the hitbox as soon as you press the button, I set up a system that allows me to call, modify, and change the hitbox on the animation timeline itself. This is a standard process that like every fighting game does, mainly because it allows characters to be very different from each other and very versatile, and you can call things at different times of the animation. Next, I got a 3-hit heavy combo for her and on-hit effects to apply on the last hit of a attack. I had to make some modifications to how attacks work in order to string combos together into like these combo strings. And I also added a function that pulls you closer to the enemy when hitting them so that you don't miss attacks all the time. Now, I realized that I didn't have a targeting system to switch between enemies, so I went and created that. Also, shout out to Kenny for the lock-on ad set. He is a godsend to the game dev community. For the time being, I wanted the lock-on to be pretty simple, so it just cycles from the current enemy you're on to the next enemy in the list. This lock-on is good enough for now, so let's move on to the next part, which is getting an actual model for the enemy class. So I wanted to make a sandbag character similar to how it is in Smash, how it's always there and you can just kind of beat it up in practice. The sandbag character, which will be named Baggy, is heavily based off of this type of sandbag. And this is the finished model for him. I didn't want to spend too much time on thinking about this character since they're just going to be getting beat up. But for some quick work, I really like the way he turned out, and I'm proud of it. Okay, now let's quickly talk about how damage typing will work. There are 5 types of damage scaling. The first of which is health-based scaling, where the damage that you deal is based off of the character's maximum health. For the most part, this will mainly be used on tanks. Next, we have core attack. This type of damage is essentially going to be your magic stat in the game. And it will primarily be used on speed type characters, but all of these will be versatile and I can put it on anyone. Next, we have attack. This has the highest damage scaling and it's going to be used on the damage characters. And for the last 2, we have attack defense, which stops attack damage, and core defense, which stops core damage. So these will be the main type of damage scalings that will be used throughout the combat mode of the game. With that explained, let's get back to game development. To make it clear what type of damage you're doing, I made the damage numbers that get displayed when you hit them change color based off of the main damage type you're doing. So green damage will be your core damage, red damage will be your health damage, and orange damage will be your physical attack damage. Now let's add blocking in. This game's going to use both high and low blocking just like any other fighting game would. So now when you're comboing them while they're blocking, you can try and mix it up with your highs and lows to open them up, thus allowing you to have bigger combos. So to add more defensive play to the game, I looked back into Super Smash Bros. / Platform Fighters for some inspiration. Like, I can't believe that I forgot about this. This is like the most important part to the defensive play of platform fighters, which is being able to tech from attacks. So I went and added that to the combat system. So now the AI will roll a dice on if it will decide to tech the hit or not, or if it's going to miss and just do a normal get up roll. And just as a little side note, all the AI have probabilities of being able to attack, and all these other things in order to make the PvE aspect of the game feel like there's difficulty curves. So for all you fighting game players out there, I added in the thing that a lot of people love and a lot of people hate, which is input notation. This will allow me to make the characters have their own unique moves and skills, all tied to just putting the inputs in instead of hard coding what they all can do. Fear not, young watchers. I'll make sure that the input notations can be done in a very easy way for people with accessibility issues so that they can also do the input notations. So now with input notation put into the combat system, I can allow for summon abilities to execute. Summon abilities will be quarter circle forward, slash backwards, and a button. This specific one you're looking at is the ability for Blue Chocolate Hedgehog. So now here's a little combo with the ability being used. So the next thing we needed to add is grabbing to the game. So once again, I will be taking an example from Super Smash Bros. The grabs in this game are going to be directional based, just like how it is in those platform fighters. And you'll have 4 directions you can choose for them. This one that you're seeing right now is the down throw. So after getting the basic grabs in, I decided I wanted to make a VFX for the shield spawning and despawning. It is a simple VFX, but it works really well for how fast it needs to be. And now since I was in the VFX mood, I decided it was time to add VFX to the first summon ability we made. Now summon abilities are a big explosion of energy, so I wanted to represent that in the art. Also, as a little note, this VFX is not finished. It will be finished when I get the actual models for the summons into the game. So at this point, I needed other combos, so I added in her light combo, and here it is. So at this point, the combat system is starting to all come together, but the cinematics weren't there, so I wanted to make a camera system to show cinematic actions. To start with this camera system, I decided to put it on her rig itself. I made a bone that basically looks at another bone and tracks where that bone is. And then I just attached the camera object I used in Unreal to the camera bone in her rig. Now, I can't take the credit for this idea. I initially found this idea from another developer named Super Trooper. They are making a game called Project Stella, which is a Jak and Daxter / Legend of Zelda inspired game. They made this really complex camera system, which I only use like the very basis of it. But if you have any interest in their type of game, I recommend you give them a look out. So now with this camera system all completed, I added it into the game, animated the camera, and this is the look of it. The camera is a lot more cinematic, and it can be timed to the animation itself, which makes my work a lot easier. So now that grabs are completed, I needed to make a couple aerial combos for Strawberry so that I can actually start making real combos. Now she has her light, medium, and heavy neutral combos in the air. Air attacks can be hit canceled into another attack in the air, allowing you to do a little bit more fancier combos. So the combat system is starting to look pretty clean now, and here is a combo of everything that I've added so far just into the game. So now for one of the main last systems that I needed was a system called Core Awakening. So for lack of a better word, this is essentially a domain expansion, but like it adds a lot of extra things that will be applied to enemies. This is an example of my previous project that I want to use as a reference for the Core Awakening. It's going to be a lot less visually distracting though. So first things first, I have to model and rig the core for Strawberry. Each character will have their own core that they spawn, and then it'll be in the battle itself, pulsing the effect to both enemies and allies. The art aspect and the rigging aspect for this is going to be very simple. Most of the colors are going to be determined through the code itself because it's just going to be an emissive property that glows up above you. With everything set and done, this is the Core Awakening. Still not completely finished yet, but it is in the state that it can be used in the game, and that is honestly what's most important. Alright, with that, this catches us up over the past 4 months of what I've been doing with this project and all the work that I've put in so far. So these devlogs are going to be bi-monthly so that it gives me like a month's worth of time to work on it and then a month's worth of time to release the video. I really hope you enjoyed this progress report, and I will catch you guys in 2 months from now, okay? And don't forget to take care of your core.
Time like Rocky, I'm still young, got plans, got goals. It's my world, demon queen rule, take control. Yeah, I heard about them, but they'll know about me. Capital B to the double E, Z to the E, the head honcho. I make them buck like a Baco. My time to shine, you'll be out of here pronto. Oh, you're so scary and you're so intimidating. These are your last moments, tick tick, I'm just waiting. Don't care about your crew or your boss, you'll take a loss. Better quit now, too late, bets off, your time's done. This will be my dominion, king to a queen. You better pay attention, so have fun.